Um, so as America is trying to get a ceasefire with Iran, Iran has been very, very like consistent that they want Lebanon to be a part of this ceasefire. Now I've said before I would extend it to Gaza as well if I was Iran, but they're the negotiators here. They got the smart people who know what they're doing. So but yeah, so they want Israel and Lebanon to be a part of the ceasefire, and there's the primary reason for that from Iran's perspective is that if America can't rein in Israel or is unwilling to rein in Israel, then there is no point to the ceasefire. Then they might as well just continue to be at war, because Israel will just be a destabilizing force in perpetuity, going to war with every brown country that surrounds it and trying to steal all of their territory as much as they possibly can, like forever, constantly destabilizing as long as they possibly can. And so Iran wants America to rein in Israel to show that they are capable of doing so, because if they're not capable, like I said, if they're not capable of it, then there's no real point to even having a ceasefire at that point. So but Israel does not want that. Israel wants to keep trying to steal as much territory as possible. This is largely due to the fact that Israel is in the weakest geopolitical strategic position that it has ever been in historically. Americans are turning on Israel like, I don't know, what's something that turns a lot, like a ballet person. They're turning on Israel real fast. It's already a done deal when it comes to the Democratic Party. It's like a 90-10 issue. When it comes to Republicans, it's probably still favor Israel, like 60-40 or something. Or like favorable opinions of Israel, but it is going down, and it is generational as well, which is exactly how it started with the Democratic Party. So eventually those numbers on the Republican side are also going to be very against Israel as well. It might take a little longer though, but yeah. And so Israel sees this as their kind of last hurrah, really. As a part of that last hurrah, though, it does seem like they're doing the classic thing that Nazis tend to do at the end of their at the end of their reign, essentially, which is to overextend themselves in every single direction. So that's kind of like, I'd say, like where we're at, where Israel is currently occupying parts of Syria. They're occupying parts of Gaza. They have the entire West Bank that they need a full military occupation, essentially, of that part of Palestine as well, in order to protect all of their, I'll just say, like, super smart settlers. They're dumb, mentally stupid settlers out there. They need a lot of protecting if they want to keep bashing in Palestinian faces doing pogroms and all that sort of stuff. It requires a lot. And then obviously now they're also pretty spread pretty thin in Lebanon as well. And so I think a lot of Western media doesn't really cover this that much, but Hezbollah has been doing work on Israel, and they have been for a long time now. They've been taking out their Markava tanks since Israel crossed over the border. Like, they have been taking out, at least a couple a day, the entire time. Like, the entire time that Israel has been violating the ceasefire and all that sort of stuff, or like even before that, when they first invaded. And I think that the most recent sort of changes have been in like drone warfare. Hezbollah has been taking up like the Ukrainian model of using like cheap drones, like not like Shahed drones, like not those types of drones, but like actual drones that you fly with like a remote control, and using those in order to wreak havoc on the Israeli occupation forces that are trying to commit genocide against their people. So this video, I think, should cover a lot of that. Let's go ahead and watch it. Let's see what this analyst, I guess is the right word for that, says about it, and we'll see if we agree or disagree.
Is intensifying its strikes on Lebanon despite agreeing to a US-brokered ceasefire. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his military is now operating with, quote, large forces on the ground and taking control of strategic areas. It's issued evacuation orders for 8 more towns in southern Lebanon in the past hour. Earlier, strikes hit Nabatea and the town of Mashgara, where...
And I know that also, keep in mind, you're going to see a lot of this as a genocidal nation state runs out of fumes and like, is kind of like reaching the limits of what they're able to do militarily. What they tend to do is they tend to turn to how much civilian damage can we do, right? That's like what they tend to do. So they will start doing more and more damage to civilian infrastructure. They'll start killing more and more civilians. I always say it's terrible. It's war crimes. It is like something that must be stopped. We must stop this from happening. However, at the same time, I want to give people hope because this does not a war win. Okay. The amount of civilians you kill does not in any way, shape, or form whatsoever, not in any way, shape, or form indicate what the end result, strategic result of the war is going to be. In fact, usually the people who end up doing a lot of war crimes and committing atrocities against civilians usually end up failing when it comes to strategic goals and strategic outcomes of the war. So I like to always like kind of preface, like you're going to see a lot of this. It's going to be very genocidal. There's going to be a lot of death and destruction of civilians, but death and destructions of civilians is not the same as like actual military accomplishments against like Hezbollah. So as long as Hezbollah is there and fighting and still going strong, this is not going to any way like, because this is what they do like as an avoidance of actually fighting against Hezbollah. It's a way to rally their genocidal like masses, right, to like a hysteria of like, yes, we are doing so much genocidal damage and we are punishing them and it makes us feel good, but it's because they are actually unable to accomplish things on the battlefield. That is why they turn to this. So it is terrible, it is disgusting, it is genocidal, but it is not in any way going to lead to strategic victory.
At least 11 people were killed, including 2 children. More than 3,000 people have been killed across Lebanon since March.
Under my direction and that of the Minister of Defence, together with the Chief of Staff, we're intensifying our operations in Lebanon. With large IDF forces on the ground and control over key areas, we are fortifying the security zone to protect the northern communities. At the same time, we're mobilising a massive national effort to develop...
We'll see how long that lasts, by the way. We'll see how long they can last inside of Lebanon, because history tells us that it's not that long. Usually they are forced out by Hezbollah, like I'd say like within a year or so. So I don't think that they're going to be able to last that long in Lebanon. They certainly will not be able to last indefinitely. As long as Hezbollah exists, they will be, there will be an IOF soldier dying at least once per day until they decide to leave. And eventually that politically becomes too toxic, even for the genocidal fever pitch that the average Israeli citizen is like currently in.
Creative and innovative solutions against explosive drones.
Now, Israel says it's expanded.
They won't be able to do shit about the drones, by the way. Russia hasn't really been able to do shit about the drones. It has been a very new, interesting form of warfare. And I'm sure they'll try to come up with some way to stop this from happening. But the problem is, like, a lot of people often think like, oh, if we just get this one piece of defensive technology, that it's going to stop these things from happening, without ever considering that, but the enemy is also going to adapt to everything that you come up with and will come up with ways around it. Like that's like when they were talking about like the laser system, that they're so close to having a laser system that's able to just knock out drones for like pennies on the dollar or whatever. I'm like, we'll see. I'll believe it when I see it in action, but even if they did, it's like, well, then the enemy or like the Iranians or whoever, right, will then just find ways around that. Like it's a two-sided game, this game of war that Israel chooses to play against all of their neighbors.
Its ground operation beyond the so-called yellow line. That's a no-go zone about 10 kilometers north of the border. The yellow line also extends into Mediterranean waters that are rich in energy resources.
Of course, they're trying to claim the energy resources as well.
Displacement is also growing. Since Israel ramped up its threats, many people are fleeing places known as Hezbollah strongholds, including the southern suburbs of Beirut, where they're now living in makeshift camps. Now, for more on this, I'm joined by Ali Rizk. He's a security affairs analyst and contributor to Responsible Statecraft. He joins me live in Beirut. 20%
I read that sometimes.
of Lebanon's population is displaced right now. Israel says it has 14% of Lebanese territory and is expanding. So the question is this, very simply, is Hezbollah losing this war?
No, I don't think you could say Hezbollah is losing this war. In fact, I think one of the reasons why Netanyahu is doing what he's doing is because he's been rather surprised by Hezbollah's performance. I think that many people thought that this time Hezbollah was going to be an easy prey given what happened.
It's exactly what I just said, by the way. I don't pre-watch this stuff, but yeah, the reason that he's overreacting and overreaching is because Israel is in a weakened state. That is why they are doing these things. They are weaker than they have ever been, both politically and militarily. They are incredibly weak right now.
In 2024, during the 66-day war, where
I would also say, always remember, the Israeli occupying forces, the actual on the ground, boots on the ground army, are not used to fighting real resistance, right? They fight Hamas, sure, like occasionally. Like I don't know, they barely even do that though. They usually rely almost entirely on airstrikes when it comes to Gaza. But I guess maybe occasionally they engage with Hamas on the ground. But then they're used to their main purpose is a civilian police force, right? They are like imagine like ICE, right? Like, you know how right now, like America is like recruiting a bunch of, I don't know, like 20-year-old, like borderline retarded, sorry, like just like very, very, very stupid, like people like to become a part of ICE. And then it's either that or like a 300-pound hog who like hasn't seen a treadmill in their entire life. Like these are that's essentially what the types of people that are recruited into the Israeli military are, because it's like a forced military system where everybody has to be a part of it. It is really more of just an internal police force, and their usual goal is to brutalize civilians and to kill civilians and to target and, you know, rape and oppress like Palestinian civilians. Like that is their primary goal. So when they actually have to fight in real skirmishes against actual resistance, they usually do horribly. And so we will see, you know, I think you need to take that into consideration as well when they're doing this sort of stuff. A lot of their capabilities are all just airstrikes, and airstrikes do not win wars. Like they just don't.
The Israelis scored some major successes against Hezbollah, but it turned out to be quite surprising this time. And I think that's why Netanyahu is being forced to intensify the operation, because there's a lot of criticism, by the way, from northern settlers, from rival politicians. So I think that Netanyahu finds that he has no choice but to do this. Remember that Netanyahu prides himself, I think, of being the prime minister who was able to score these major successes against Hezbollah, which is Israel's traditional nemesis. It was the first Arab force that was able to fight Israel to a standstill in 2006. So after what Netanyahu achieved in 2024, those achievements are now in jeopardy. And I think that's one of the major driving factors pushing him to escalate.
Now, Ali, Israel does have a weapon here that is beyond just the war. It's the displacement crisis in Lebanon. Like I say, 20%, more than 1 million people are displaced right now. At what point does that become a Lebanese crisis that forces pressure on Hezbollah?
That is one of the Israeli objectives, to make Hezbollah supporters turn against it. But I don't think that will be successful in any way whatsoever.
Well, especially as Hezbollah becomes more and more successful. Hezbollah was in probably a weakened political state, I would say, at the beginning of this conflict. Largely because they were seen as joining in into a war that like the Lebanese people might not have wanted to overall. But Israel was always going to invade and try to steal Lebanese territory regardless, regardless of whether Hezbollah joined in or not. So, like, I mean, that's kind of like a messaging issue, I guess. But I think the more brutal and barbaric Israel is, and the more evil they are, the more people come to like be on Hezbollah's side. The more people who are displaced, the more people are like pro Hezbollah, is what I would say. And the more civilian infrastructure that Israel targets, and the more genocide it commits, and the more medical professionals that Israel kills, and the more schools that they target, the more and more people get on board with Hezbollah, and the more and more Hezbollah is able to recruit. Hezbollah probably is recruiting more right now than they ever have. So I don't know. I think I think that these two things are fundamentally incompatible. You're not going to be able to politically weaken Hezbollah without backing off of your genocidal intentions, but the genocidal intentions are the entire goal, so you are by necessity going to strengthen Hezbollah politically. It's like there's no way around that dichotomy.
I think that first and foremost it's about security. There was, by the way, a recent opinion poll which was held, and that opinion poll revealed that 88% of the Shias, Lebanese Shias, do not support the disarmament of Hezbollah. So that goes a long way in telling you where the traditional or where the core supporters of Hezbollah stand. And I think it's actually the opposite. The more the Israelis continue with this bombardment without the Lebanese state taking up the role which it should take in protecting or in taking any action, the more the Lebanese Shias are going to see Hezbollah as their only refuge. And so I don't think that this, if that's one of the Israeli objectives, I don't think it's going to succeed.
But if it is the way you say it is, then, Hezbollah is going to do what it wants to do, what it has to do to survive, to try and give the Israelis a run for their money in the south. But this is all going on as negotiations are taking place in D.C. between the Lebanese government and the Israelis. Now, those negotiations...
Dude, what? Who cares about those negotiations? What's the Lebanese army going to do about this shit? The Lebanese army is fucking like... They are so weakened that like they would not be able to disarm Hezbollah. There's nothing they could possibly do to disarm Hezbollah. The worst thing they probably could possibly do is to try to start some sort of civil war against Hezbollah right now. If they literally went to war against Hezbollah, I think that it would, honest to God, create like a civil war condition where Hezbollah like I don't know, like people would have to pick sides, right? And I don't think that they could politically do that, especially when another country is at war with them. And the Lebanese army, it's their fucking job to go out there and like start murking IOF people. Like they should be out there killing as many Israeli occupation forces as possible. If they did that, then maybe there would be a situation where people would not support Hezbollah. But it would be ridiculous for people not to support Hezbollah when Hezbollah is literally the only thing keeping Israel from like marching down the streets of Beirut and like declaring all of Lebanon Israeli territory. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm sorry. They're going to have support in this situation.
Despite the fact that Hezbollah says the Lebanese government shouldn't be negotiating, those negotiations will eventually have an impact on Hezbollah, right?
Nah.
They may, but I think that the more important negotiations which we have to keep an eye on are those between Iran and the United States. Now, Iran has been adamant that any deal must include Lebanon. And I think in this particular issue, the United States...
The reason I say nah is just it's not possible. The Lebanese army can't do anything against Hezbollah. They just can't. And I don't think that there would be the political will to do that while Hezbollah is defending Lebanon from the genocidal Israeli forces. So I just don't think it's going to happen.
This might give in to that. It might say, yes, okay, let it include Lebanon. I think that's a small price to pay for the U.S. in exchange for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, in exchange for reaching a broader agreement with Iran. Remember that Hezbollah is not a threat to American interests. Hezbollah is a threat to Israeli expansion, so to speak. So I think that this might be a bargain which the Americans may, I emphasize may, take up. If that means that they will solve the economic issues, that means the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, the oil prices decreasing, addressing all those issues, Lebanon's a small price to pay for the Americans. And I think, by the way, that's something which Hezbollah is.
I think it might happen. Like, I do think that Iran is serious about that negotiation and about wanting Lebanon to be a part of it. The question really is what happens. Like, there needs to be contingencies built in for what happens when Israel inevitably violates it, right? So, like, let's say there is a negotiated settlement between the U.S. and Iran, and they say, okay, as a part of the settlement, Israel has to completely remove itself from Lebanon and fully and is not allowed to do any sort of strikes against Hezbollah or Lebanon whatsoever, and vice versa. Lebanon and Hezbollah are not allowed to strike Israel. So what are the contingencies when Israel inevitably does not follow that, right? When Israel does start doing strikes on Lebanon outside of that, then what, right? Those are the questions that need to be ironed out, because I think that it would necessitate, at the very least, Hezbollah would need to retaliate. But then also, I think it would necessitate Iran to retaliate as well. I think Iran would need to start striking Israel again, I think, in that particular circumstance. I think that should be laid out in the deal, is that if Israel decides to break this ceasefire, then Iran will have full rights to reclose the Strait of Hormuz and to start striking Israel as well. Like, I think that needs to be kind of like part of it.
Is banking on. Hezbollah is banking on that adamant Iranian stance with the Americans. And I think that it knows that might be the determinant factor more than what happens between the Lebanese and the Israelis.
Ali Reza, thank you so much.
Yep. Well, pretty good analysis. That interviewer, man, I don't know what he was talking about. He seemed like he was really anti-Hezbollah, if I had to guess. But okay, well, there you go.